in conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music and gaming. Only on Hungama Game Changers podcast.
Hi, welcome to Hungama celebration of the 50 Game Changers 2024. Over this season, you will get to know women who are chalking their own path and paving the way for the multitudes to follow in the field of entertainment across music, video and gaming. I'm Rauanq from Hungama, and it is my pleasure to welcome the game changer Ronkini Gupta, an acclaimed Hindustani classical vocalist and playback singer who has won the Saregamapa World Series. But besides her playback singing, Ronkini is known for moving between the rigor of Hindustani Kheyaal and the fluidity of Bollywood playback. Her band, the Kheyaal E Jazz Projekt, epitomizes this blend, bringing Indian classical ragas into a jazz framework, for which they have won the Artist Aloud Music Awards in 2016 and 2018. Welcome, Ronkini. Thank you for taking the time to share the knowledge and shorten the learning curve.
Thank you so much, Rauanq. It's really heartening to hear such an introduction about oneself. Thank you so much. I have no words. I'm speechless most of the times when, I come to a forum where I'm introduced like this, because it really never feels that you've done so much, because there is so much more to do, and it's such an ocean. It's an infinite space. Art is an infinite space. So you really never feel that you've done a lot.
That's absolutely true, but I'm going to ask you, and I see this with a lot of the young women that I speak to, why aren't you feeling like enough?
No, it's not about feeling enough. I think as far as I am concerned, it's like when you're in the ocean, you don't feel enough or more or less. It's a feeling of surrender. It's a place which is a fine balance of control and surrender, I would say. It's not all surrender, because there is a certain skill involved in art. And there is years of practice and rigor and all of which you mentioned extremely articulately. All of that is involved. So there is that bit of control. But the moment you're on stage or in that spot, it takes a lot of surrender and that fine balance between that control and surrender. So I don't think the feeling of less or more really happens there, because there is no space for that feeling. I
will say that in the time that you have already spent in music, you have achieved a tremendous amount. I think you have stayed versatile in the sense that you have constantly shifted outside of what would otherwise have become a comfort zone. Correct. And you're constantly dabbling in different ways to push yourself, bring passions together, and not get pigeonholed.
Thank you so much for applauding and acknowledging that. I wouldn't say it was very, very thought out or very purposefully done. But at the same time, I think because exploration is essentially what I do, because Indian classical music or Kheyaal, what my heart lies in, where my heart lies, is a very exploratory and improv form of music. So exploration is the biggest, or I would say the core of that form, of that genre. And that sort of tends to make me a little more experimental. And therefore, of course, there were other thoughts also which came in while I was making my fusion band, Kheyaal E Jazz. There was this constant, when I was pursuing Indian classical form as a pure genre also, there was a constant reminder from the outer space that this traditional art form has a very archaic kind of just people think of it as a very old form of art, or an archaic form of
an old sound.
As far as the sound goes, even the presentation for that matter, the sound, the presentation, everything put together, the visual of it, or the visual people have in their minds about it, is old school or old fashioned to that extent. So that was the reason why I wanted to reach out to younger audiences at that point of time. I started the band in 2015. So that was the primary core thought behind it, that I want to reach out to a lot more people and probably reinforce that Indian classical music has all the facets of so-called entertainment also, although it is essentially it's an inward art. It's essentially to look inside and not so much with the outside. But as we keep looking in, we find that we are all the same, what is outside is inside, what is inside is outside, and it's all the same. So then the projection of it can also be done accordingly. Right. Where it probably faces a challenge is the contemporariness of it, which with every generation we can actually change the game. So even after doing Kheyaal E Jazz for about 3-4 good years, I actually shifted back to the pure format, because I felt that I could take facets of that and incorporate that into the most traditional format and yet be as contemporary as it is. So that was the thought, just to kind of sum up.
How much you have considered this process. I know that you mentioned that a lot of it has happened kind of organically, more than in a planned out manner. But I think it's very considered the way you have gone back and forth and sort of stayed true to what is inherently your craft. Ronkini, to start with, actually, tell me a little bit about your journey, getting in, getting accepted, and then getting ahead and, getting the respect of and realizing that in the world of music, you are now leaving your own imprint.
You're very kind with your words. It's very, very, very generous, I would say. I'm overwhelmed by those compliments. The initiation was, of course, done by my parents. I was very young when I was initiated into this art form, about 6 years old, and I was raised in a place called Tata Nagar, Jamshedpur. We recently lost Mr. Ratan Tata. So that place is almost like an afterthought of his forefathers. So I was raised there, and by God's grace, I had a guru there who was extremely, extremely knowledgeable, talented, very versatile, and I was under his guidance for about 10 years. So that was my initial stages into this craft and this art form. And initial stages were, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was not how we want to visualize it. It was so much fun, or it was a lot of rigor, it was a lot of discipline. I wasn't particularly fond of sitting and doing my riyaz or anything like that. I think that happened after a good 7-8 years into it. Because I was a child, I was 6 years old. Right. I only thought I sort of found love, if I can use that word, for it. By the time I was 15 or 16, so it's actually 10 years from then. Right. But in that span of time, a lot of things had happened, because Jamshedpur was a small place and we used to have a lot of inter-school activities, and music was part of the co-curricular activities. But by the time I was 16, 17, I realized that it was not a co-curricular activity. It is a full discipline. So then with that came a lot of other facets of love, because love by itself has so many things that it needs, right? It's not just being interested, or it's not just getting infatuated by the outer layers of it. It's a lot of commitment, it's a lot of sacrifice, it's a lot of work and effort. Yeah. So that followed from around the age of 15, I would say. And then I also was fortunate enough to find my other gurus, my other teachers, 3 of them, who honed this craft along with me, helped me grow. So just to name them, my first guru was Chandrakant Apteji. Then I came to Ustad Dilshad Khan Sahab, who's Parveen Sultana Ji's husband, Begum Parveen Sultana Ji, the great maestro. Then I learned under Pandit Samaresh Chaudhary Ji for a while, Ustad Abdul Rashid Khan Sahab for a while, and now I'm currently under the guidance of Ustad Arshad Ali Khan, who's from the Kirana Gharana, and he's actually as old as I am, but as far as the craft goes, he's at least a couple of lifetimes ahead. So it's a craft of lifetimes is what I realize. The more I delve into it, the more I keep learning and growing and all of that. So that was my initiation, and till now, the learning part. What else do you want me to throw light upon?
Okay, you know what? Let's start by also saying at some point you must have realized that while you love music, there are other things that you can do. You were obviously city in a very corporate town. So was it daunting to make the choice that music will be your life? Or was it just a natural automatic career choice for you?
Difficult to answer. It was daunting from different points of views. It was daunting because a lot of the others weren't doing this, and usually we are always, because we are part of a system all the time, whether it is a school, whether it is a township, whether it is the culture that we have grown in, whether it's the parents. So like I said, I was in Jamshedpur, so everybody was from the Tatas. Everybody's parents were working for the Tatas, and we were like a really small microcosm of the external system. If you're not part of the herd, it's obviously daunting. And all we knew as we were growing up was that you either take engineering or you take medicine. I think even the fact that people would do something like a journalism or take up arts in their +2, in their 11th and 12th was daunting in a sense.
Right. Yeah.
Because you are just slotted. I wouldn't want to say into what, but you're slotted. You're slotted as probably not the most intelligent, probably not the cream of the school or whatever. Fortunately for me, I was a meritorious student. So I took up science because I had the grades. But now when I look back at that decision, I sometimes feel I could have taken up arts because my heart always lied there.
Right.
So I was very fond of reading literature. I was extremely fond of music, obviously. I used to paint a lot. I'm actually interested a lot in social behavior. When I further, after my college, where I did BSc Maths and Statistics, I went into doing MBA, and there I studied marketing and advertising. I figured that organizational behavior was one of my favorite subjects. So essentially psychology was also something that really, turned me on in that sense. But I don't think I was in the space to take or make any decision of my own at that point of time. It was all mostly guided decision making. And all of that was actually to do with an output. So if the output says this, you do this.
Right.
Which is the whole, and then I went on to study statistics in my bachelor's. So I figured that how much of that is a manipulated process. But at the same time, I took this decision, the taking of this decision was, a lot of it was organic, because while I was studying, I kept on pursuing this in some way or the other. And it ensured two things. One, I don't lose touch with it. Right. Which is huge, because if you lose touch with it at some point of time, and if that loss of time is 5 to 6 years, you can really go back a lot, and to then revive it from there is almost impossible. So one thing was that it ensured that it stayed with me when I organically started stepping from this boat to the other one. And the second thing that happened was, as I grew older, it gave me confidence to make those decisions and become more independent with those decisions. So even now I feel when somebody asks me if they should or shouldn't, I still feel it's daunting. I mean, it's not easy for me to tell them, oh, just do it. You should do it because I should have done it much earlier, so you should do it much earlier. It does not come out of my mouth as easy as that. Right. So, yes, it was daunting, but at the same time, I think it was somewhere in between. And then a lot of it also was because my parents came from a service background, and with due respect to how much they pushed me to learn, idea of me taking it up as a career was an insecure thought for them in their heads.
Ronkini, tell me, and this is based on something that the young lady said to me, who's in the similar space. Would you say music or entertainment as a space to inhabit as a young woman? Is it a kind space?
These questions are so layered. From the point of view of the external,
I think both, but even from within.
Internal space, I feel art is a very kind space, because what it gives you, it goes much beyond what we term as success today, or we have to actually dabble with what is our idea of success. I think it's very, very correlated with that question. So if it is correlated with that question, then the external may not be so kind, but then I feel that is true for any career.
Okay.
We are living in a very different world today. So, I mean, when you say kind, what do you really mean by that?
I meant as a space to inhabit, as an industry, as a space. Like, for example, I will articulate my question.
Yeah, if you can just...
I think one of the things that, for example, a lot of women have spoken to me about is gatekeeping. Or the ability to, do as many shows, be in as many rooms, headline as many times.
Correct. So I think that is the question that we are trying to answer. All spaces are as challenging or as unkind. It's not restricted to music only. I have had the opportunity to be also part of a corporate sector for a while. It's as much that there as well. You ask medical practitioners, they'll tell you the same. You ask engineers, they'll tell you the same. You ask any industry, you'll ask cinema, and we are still having, these conversations around should there be more women directors? Should there be more women on the sets?
Oh, absolutely. Just this afternoon, I have accepted defeat. Somebody asked me to suggest a CTO from the broadcast space, not OTT, not digital, from the broadcast space, who's a woman, who'll be a jury or something out of the UK. And after making about 20 phone calls, I've sent her a message saying, I don't know anybody.
See? Yeah. So I think, so that unkindness is everywhere, Rauanq. You would agree with that, right? And if you are there in that kind of a position, you're almost thinking, oh, really? Am I really there? Or what is it?
I think a lot of industries can be unkind. That the entertainment industry it adds financial uncertainty to that unkindness.
Yes.
Even more so. So what are some of the challenges you have faced as a youngster in the Indian music and entertainment space, and also as a woman?
The usual ones, of course. Let's begin with with my first opportunity as a commercial project. So I was in college. I had just passed out, and I had done a BSc degree. Before all of this, this is called a disclaimer.
Right.
I have actually been a little fortunate in terms of getting my opportunities. But again, it's a catch-22 situation. People are actually faced with opportunities. They have to be able to recognize them as opportunities. Courage is a very important element there, which goes beyond what we were talking right before this, right? That there is a scenario and then you have to take a few steps here and there. So courage comes as a very fine characteristic trait to have. Courage and flexibility. These two are very important traits. Adaptability. When I say flexibility, adaptability is what I mean.
Right.
So these two aspects. But having said that, the first opportunity that I got, even before the commercial project, let's go there because it was a little connected in that sense. My Saregamapa that happened, I was in college at that time.
Right.
So taking that up and then of course going on to win the World Series did put me in a place where some opportunities started coming in. Right? So my show career or whatever you want to call it, that kind of started even when I had not finished my education. I started earning when I was 19. Okay. And just to get some math in place, I was going to pass out of college in 2005. It would have been a BSc degree in maths and statistics. I have no clue what kind of a job I would have landed up with just a BSc degree. Let's say if I would have, it would have fetched me maybe 10 to 12,000 rupees per month.
Right.
Max, tops, in the year 2005.
Right.
Which is about, let's say, 12 into 2.5 lakh rupees a year.
Yep.
Okay. Right. And then I would have had to live in Bombay, blah, blah. I'm not considering that. Let's say 2.5 lakh rupees is what I would have made tops in the year 2005 if I would have passed out and landed a job. That is still questionable. But let's say I would have been fortunate and would have done that as well. Now, because I had cracked this competition and I was getting my shows, at that point of time, I actually made a lot more money than that in those couple of years.
Right.
The question was whether I would be able to multiply that money? And the answer to that is actually yes, if you can plan it like that, because it's an entrepreneurship space. A solo performer today, a musician, is actually a sole proprietorship kind of he or she's an organization in himself or herself. Right. So you have to keep planning. So all those things that are associated with business, so to speak, will be associated with that person's career.
Right.
What are the opportunities coming? Who are my competitors? What is my space? What are my strengths? So where am I entering? All of that study comes in, and the person who is able to recognize those pieces is able to raise that sum. We agree on that? So Now what happened was, while I got these opportunities, I started also figuring out because every year Saregamapa is happening and new people are coming in. So this is going to wane. So now my next step has to be something where I can capitalize on this and grow it further. But to be very honest, the show line for music, if you have some Bollywood songs coming out, like it's a related business, right?
Yes,
so if
absolutely.
You have songs coming out, then then it adds to your brand equity, and that adds to your financial returns in a bigger way. So all that had not happened with me. So I was wondering कि भाई इसके आगे क्या करना है, how to increase the rates. If I'm getting 10,000 per show, then how to make that 20 or 30 or 50, whatever. In my little whatever mind that I had, all these thoughts were running. But when I passed out, I actually auditioned for a show, which was a Broadway of sorts, which now has picked up in a big way after NMACC has come in. A little before that, actually, post-COVID. Mughal-e-Azam, if you are aware of these Broadway shows. उस वक्त 2005 में there was a company that came from abroad. It came from Israel actually. They came here, did an audition, and I got selected for this Broadway show called Bharti, which was an Indian Broadway show with all Indian cast going to be exhibited abroad. That was the show. So while I was thinking what to do, this happened, and then I was part of that troupe.
Right.
And that ran for a good 2 to 3 years. So I'm saying all of this because it's related to when I say that I was a bit fortunate. So while I was thinking what to do, this came in, almost fell on my lap, and then I auditioned for it. I cracked it and I went. And at that point of time, it was a huge sum of money actually. I would have never been able to make that money by doing anything in India. So I did that for 3 to 4 years. And then I came back, but at the same time, like you're saying, so my experience was very kind in terms of getting opportunities. But the unkindness was, what next? What is my growth? Because ultimately a career is not just about external opportunities. It's also about, if it's a craft, then am I also growing in that craft? Because I don't really associate with a 20, 25 or a 30-year-old career where you are in the same place, but only your brand has built. Yeah. I'm not that person. So I'm not comfortable with that. That is unkind for me.
Right.
So,
in fact, how do you then navigate between the creative process and the commercial success parameters that exist as a part of our reality?
That is, I think, where the personality or the uniqueness of the person comes in. How I am thinking about this art form. And that is where the term career started going almost redundant for me. Because music, while it started as an interest or a hobby, became whatever you call it, a discipline of sorts. It started becoming a part of my life. Till the time, it was for a big point of time, I was doing my academics as well as this. So I was always on two boards. And then came a time where I had to decide that, okay, this is so much a part of my life that now it cannot be just a part. It was priority. It almost started becoming me, as I feel it's not a part of my life anymore. It is my entire life. And the other things are then, so whatever happens in my life has to somehow fuel this. That is how I look at music now, standing at this point in my life. So that thought itself has had its own journey to arrive here. So while I was arriving here and music was becoming me, or I was becoming my music, this whole agenda of it wanting to satisfy my commercial success kept diminishing, or my attachment of success with wealth kept diminishing. My attachment of success with growth kept increasing. And it has come to a point where my relationship with money has changed. I am not one of those musicians who's doing it for a living, because a lot of people, artists also, when we ask, the debate constantly keeps shuttling between how will a musician then make a living?
Right.
So that question has dissolved for me. I am not making a living out of music, or music is not something I want to make a living out of. I live for music. I am not making a living out of music. Okay. Whereas I am now, because I am a full-time musician, I am making a living out of music, but that is not my agenda with music.
Fair. So that's what I wanted to actually just clarify that. That being said, that may not be the agenda, but at the end of the day, it still is life, right? You still have to make a living. So
it is what I also do. But when the needle shifts, Rauanq, your life takes a different course. And this I'm talking from personal experience. There was a time when I was doing a lot of things to pay bills.
Right.
That thought itself blunts art. Let me be very clear about it. And I've had to take very terse and difficult decisions at difficult points in life. I'm saying difficult because we are always going back to how much money is there and therefore how will I live? That question. So those difficulties have to be crossed with a leap of faith, and that's where the courage and the adaptability comes in, and which I started with when we started this conversation about kindness. And that kind of motivated me and also kind of bore results. So that's why I'm also saying that fortune plays a big role in it. But I feel that when you point the needle in that direction, then things will start. You have to give some kind of a signal into the universe. And it has to be very clear. And that clarity brings you a lot of things, is my experience. Again, different people have different experiences.
Ronkini, tell me, do you visualize and manifest, or for the most part, like you said, is a lot of this just happening as it goes and you're figuring it out as it unveils?
No, I don't visualize and manifest. I can't, absolutely cannot say that. But I listen to my heart. I listen to my inner voice. I spend time asking difficult questions to myself and sieving out the clutter and the chaos that otherwise exists in everybody's life.
Right.
Including mine. So I take time and I try to cull out the honest answer. And love is about that honesty. If I'm cheating with myself at any level, then it will backfire in some time, in some way. And that is something that I've learned through music itself, with my riyaz. I can't be saying that I'm doing 2 hours of practice and doing just something for those 2 hours.
Right. Now, you mentioned the names of the people who have helped you, guided you, mentored you in your craft. Hear about, shout out to the people who have inspired you or influenced you in your career, in making those decisions, in making opportunities happen, in turning around and giving a helping hand.
Right. You're saying if I would like to give a shout out to them.
Yeah.
Who are those people
who helped you, not just the people who helped your craft, the people who helped your career.
So let me start. Gurus I've already mentioned. They have been extremely instrumental and inspiring. They have actually changed my thought process. This thought process of, it being a means of living, a means, and it becoming the end, or the entire journey from the means to the end. That whole thought, I think it's my gurus. And my own journey with music. But people, if you say, my parents for initiating me into the craft. A very, very big shout out to my husband now, who's my life partner, because most complex decisions, this exactly the conversation that we had right before this discussion, where I pointed out that there are those junctions where you have to be very honest with yourself, dig deep in, ask difficult questions and answer them. Right. I think that part completely goes to my partner, Satyam. who's a blessing to me. He's not from this field at all. He has no connection whatsoever with this. He plays the guitar, of course, but he's not professionally into this. When I met him, he was an HR professional. Now he's finished his 20 years of HR professional work, and today he's on his own. He's a coach, and probably I was one of his first clients for all I care, all I know, I guess, because he definitely helped me through these phases. There were multiple actually, but through these phases where life is difficult. So I think a big shout out to him. Shantanu, who is the first person with whom I did my great commercial work, and that kind of saw a lot of laurels. Rafu from Tumhari Sulu, the composer and writer of that song. He's a very good friend now. Our journey started as a teacher and a student. He came to learn from me, and through that journey, so even that experience itself, like I said, Rauanq, that I've been also very fortunate. So when you said that, you've been so versatile, so sometimes I've not made these choices. I have given a very pinpointed signal, but there have been things which came my way, which with all honesty I have done, and that bore some results which I had no control over. So I'm not going to say I have manifested, visualized, nothing of those things, but embracing the people, wanting to work with people who you really truly want to. If we pose questions to people, who do you want to work with? We always have our ideals. Oh, I want to work with X. I want to work with Y. Most of the time, those are coming because we value their work. We see their work as a very large representation of them, and we love their work, and hence we want. I feel after having worked with a lot of people that just the work shouldn't be someone's inspiration to work with. Right. The person is much bigger than the work, is my own personal experience. And when you blend with a person and his work or her work, then something very unique comes out of it. It's not a product, it's not content then. It's life, it's like your baby. It's never a commodity then. So that magic comes out when you associate not just for work, but for the love of the art, for love of the person, for love of what will come out of that association, everything. So a big shout out to him. A big shout out to my fellow musicians, I feel, because every performance, it's never a single-handed, it's not a one-man game. It's not a one-man anything ever.
Absolutely right. In fact, the thing I wanted to ask you about next actually leads off from there. The music industry, like a lot of others, or maybe more than others, is very dependent also on, who knows you, who knows of you. Networking, knowing people, knowledge sharing. How do you stay connected, and what advice would you have for youngsters who want to get into this space and would really like to figure out how to build their network within the music space?
Now it has actually rather become easier than before, I would say, Rauanq, with the social media stemming out. Most of my networking actually started after social media because I was not actually good at the other before social media times, the ways that people have worked out their networking. I wouldn't actually be able to give any input on that because, like I said, I got selected for very different projects at different points of time, and they almost serendipitously happened to me, and I was busy with those. So 2005 I got busy with Bharti. I came back in about 2008. I did an MBA after that because I had no clue what to do from there on. So it was a decision made out of elimination कि कुछ है नहीं तो यही कर लो, पढ़ाई लिखाई से ही कुछ और हो सकता है आगे. So I did that. Then I worked for about half a year, 6 months, and that was when I realized that okay, whatever I do, the money part I can manage from here also. So money is not a point of concern. Because I cracked a job which was giving me some 4-5 lakh rupees at that point of time. So I was like, अच्छा इससे ज़्यादा पैसे मैं इसमें कमा रही हूँ, इससे काफी कम काम करके, तो ये नहीं करते हैं फिर. So that was an elimination process कि अब इसको जाने दो then. And with a heavy heart again, because there was investment done for that education to happen. But at the same time, chalo, ye ho gaya. Uske baad I was completely looking at Indian classical music as a pursuit. To be honest, I had saved some money also because of that Broadway show I told you. It gave me a lot of financial, how do I put it?
Security.
Yeah. It gave me some seed to kind of be on my own. So I was like, okay, ye hai, so let me figure this out and let me see what can be done. And pure classical is what I jumped into completely. And within that span of time, between that 11 actually, I also met Satyam, so I got married and still did one year of Bharti because they were in need of a singer and they couldn't find a replacement. So then I said, okay, I'll do this one more time, maybe make some money, come back, and then again completely immerse myself into Indian classical music and see what can be done. So while I was doing that, Kheyaal E Jazz also. So I took about 2 to 3 years to figure out, acha, Indian classical mein itne hi concerts, because it's a very big divide. There is, for music in our country, there's Bollywood and then there is others. And Bollywood is 98% and 2% is others. And this others is like freakingly scary because others, with such a small minority happening, or usme then you're trying to figure out what to do and what not to do. So then I thought, acha chalo, something like a cross can be, because then that would take in, I could do some corporate events, and like you said, money always kind of figures somewhere in the equation. So you have to get that going.
Absolutely.
So all of that was happening. But again, from there on itself, 2015 to 20, COVID happened. And that also kind of came to a standstill for a while. Of course, all of us didn't know what to do in those 2 years. But somehow it again gave me another opportunity to look inside and say, okay, what do I do from here? Because, okay, money, I have saved up something. But now, is it only money or is it something else also? What is the component of money versus that something else? And for me, within these years of 2012 to 2019, from the time I got married, and that's why Satyam is such a big shout out, is the whole growth from being that person whose relationship with money kept changing, and therefore coming to this place where I start giving more pinpointed signals कि नहीं, मुझे ख्याल ही परसू करना है और उसके अंदर जो ग्रोथ है उसके लिए मुझे क्या लर्निंग करना है तो इनसे लर्न करना है, opportunities ढूंढनी है तो इन लोगों से ढूंढनी है. And that all of that started happening after 2016-17 from social media. So I have not really met people through any other medium except social media. So my advice, if you can say, with the little experience that I have of it, is do honest work, put out honest work in this medium, and there are people who will figure it out on their own. जिसको जो चाहिए वो ढूंढ रहा है. I think social media is now the biggest country, irrespective of where we are living.
Absolutely. I think what search has been able to do for music is that it's made it limitless and it's freed it from the boundaries of what's being promoted.
Correct.
By people sitting in one room. And I think discovery has just become such a beautiful way to connect the people who want with the people who create. So I think that's absolutely right. And Ronkini, I'd love for you to kind of, leave us with, I think maybe, if you have a step guide or you have just insight into the ways youngsters can get into music today and establish themselves, set themselves up in one or two streams. What would be your advice for them as they start out?
I think top would be learn what you want to do really. Right. Definitely. And YouTube or any other kind of social medium, while it is a very good medium to connect with people, it is not one of the best mediums to learn from. That's my own experience. And also because I come from a school of learning which has been very physical in a sense. And any kind of art is extremely detailed and intricate. So a lot of it is lost in the medium of internet. Therefore, so first thing is learn well to the best of your abilities. 2 would be very authentic. While you learn, figure out what your strengths and weaknesses are. Leverage on the strengths. Keep cutting out the weaknesses from the way and eliminate it. Today, as we are moving ahead, from experience, I understand versatility is not probably one of the top characteristics to chase. Find your niche. I think that's what social media is teaching us every day. Do one thing, do it extremely well. Polish it. Let it shine. So for that, I have to cut out. So I can't keep getting inspired and only inspired and only inspired. I have to go inward, ask myself what I am good at. How can I make myself better? How can I make myself more authentic in that space? And put it out with all faith in the universe. And things will happen as and when they have to.
I think that's lovely thought and sentiment, and I think that's the उम्मीद जिसके ऊपर दुनिया कायम है, right?
पूरी दुनिया कायम है,
right?
और होनी भी चाहिए, पर उसमें ऑथेंटिसिटी लाइए. आप होप, ड्रीम, ये सारी चीजें बहुत अच्छी लगती हैं जब वो ऑथेंटिसिटी से बैक्ड होती हैं, जब वो डिसिप्लिन से बैक्ड होती है, जब वो एफर्ट से बैक्ड होती है. उसका कोई सब्स्टिट्यूट नहीं है, ना कभी था ना कभी होगा. तो मीडियम्स बदलेंगे, इकोसिस्टम्स बदलेंगे, अपॉर्चुनिटीज नई वाली आएंगी. अडेप्टेबिलिटी को मैंने इसीलिए करेज के साथ रखा है क्योंकि अगर आप बहुत आर्केक हो जाएंगे और रिजिड हो जाएंगे तो चेंज जब हो रहा है तब आप उसको क्रिटिसाइज ही करते रह जाएंगे, आप उसके साथ आगे नहीं बढ़ेंगे. और चेंज तो कांस्टेंट है, वो होगा ही. आर्ट भी इवॉल्व होगा ही. चेंज मतलब इट विल चेंज फॉर द बेटर ओनली. आई फील एवरीथिंग चेंजेस फॉर द बेटर. आई एम अ बॉर्न ऑप्टिमिस्ट. As much as this space is unkind and makes you a realist more than makes you a cynic, makes you a pessimist, I don't know, all the things that it makes, it is a difficult place to be in. There is no doubting or debating that.
Right.
But at the same time, that is why courage and that is why adaptability. These are the two, probably the sides of the same coin, which we need as our wealth today. This is the coin we need more than the coins we are, working for.
Yeah. Ronkini, the same way that we're celebrating you today, we'd love for you to nominate 2 women in entertainment for the long list for 2025. We have a jury that takes the final call, but the same way that you are being applauded and celebrated for the work you have done, please recommend and amplify others.
Sure. Within this very amazing conversation that I had with you, Rauanq, I really didn't find the time to really put my head to it. I would actually like to think about it and tell you 2 names.
Please send us an email and we'd be delighted to include them in next year's long list.
The one person that comes to my mind while I'm chatting with you is Chandana Balakalyan. I don't know if she's already one of the people that you have acknowledged and rewarded. Do you know of her? Chandana Balakalyan?
I don't think she's been on our list, so I'm going to add her.
Please put that name down because she is extremely, extremely authentic, superior, supremely talented.
Right.
She's a Carnatic musician, but she's also cut into Carnatic / jazz. She was part of a band called Indiva, which was into fusion. But now she has her own thematic representation of her brainchild, which is called Marma. Okay. And it's doing fantastic work. So I think one is most definitely her.
Yeah, but I don't think she's been on the list, although I have to go back and check because I think I have seen her when she was still a part of Indiva.
Okay. Right. So you've known Indiva, right? So you must have known Chandana ji.
Yes.
Right. So one name is certainly her, and the second I will think about and I will let you know.
That's terrific. Ronkini, I think the most interesting thing about talking to you has been the emotion that you have for music and how it strengthens your resolve and passion for the space you inhabit. Above all, I have loved following the process of math and music in your decision-making process because I think the most
it has played a very,
artistic and creative and yet logical approach to the choices you're making, even when they were the harder choices that you could have made.
Correct.
I want to thank you for joining us today, and congratulations. We look forward to the many mountains you will still climb.
Thank you so much, Rauanq. Thank you so much. It's an honor and I'm humbled. Thank you.
This is Rauanq from Hungama thanking you for tuning in, and stay with us as we meet more women in entertainment who aren't just playing the game, they are changing.
In conversation with some fascinating ladies who've changed the game in the world of video, music and gaming. Only on Hungama Game Changers podcast.